Everyone. Myself Kumar Gautam. I'm from the customer success team, and I have Jose with me.
Hello, my name is Jose from product management and also from customer success team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about what's new in cyber GRC risk and compliance. So for today's session, we are going to talk about what's cyber GRC. We are going to talk about automated control testing, dynamic risk assessments, the new UI UX, and we will leave 5 minutes for Q&A at the end. Okay? So, before starting, I would like to leave this question on top of your minds for the next few minutes. That comes from the CISO, Joe Martinez from Aon. Everyone passes audits, inspections, assessments, and reviews, but the frequency and severity of security issues continue at a record pace. Are we measuring risks effectively? To answer to this question, we will talk about automated risk assessments. That will be the topic. And of course, risk management is mitigated by looking at our controls. So we will talk about automated controls as well. So in the cyber GRC landscape, we have different areas to focus on. So we have the first thing is the risk universe, where we decided to package the application with predefined asset inventories, asset classes, controls, and some risk libraries just to start with. We also decided to bring in the most used frameworks, such as NIST, Rev4 and Rev5 controls, PCI requirements and controls, CIS controls, and also the NIST CSF framework. This is the starting point of anyone that wants to use cyber GRC. Then we have the most used activities, such as risk and control self-assessments, testing and evidence collection of our key controls, managing the threats and vulnerabilities. This can be done either manually or through scanners. We have IT and policy and exceptions management, third-party risk management, risk quantification, and of course, the reports and dashboards. All of these 8 modules, they form what we call the cyber GRC landscape and the applications. Any questions so far regarding this slide and the areas that we are trying to cover in all of this module? No? Perfect. So what's the future of GRC? The future is connected. Connected to a cognitive area, from data to decision making, understanding and reasoning and learning, AI-infused workflows and decision making and risk quantification. We also have the continuous from a workflows to hyper automation, continuous control monitoring, continuous audit and assessments, and content integration. We also have the cloud. Next level of simplicity. No more managing your own infrastructure. Cloud handles all of that. On-demand, self-service, and secure, rapid, elastic, and scalable. And also a low-code, no-code platform. So what's automated control testing? To understand the automated control testing, we need to look at how complex the control environment is. So the control environment, it normally comes with a high number of processes, application handling sensitive information. We need to look at a multitude of cloud deployments and infrastructure elements, a variety of third-party providers, and also significant compliance requirements. So all of these 4 topics, they form a complex control environment. And normally, these controls, the areas of applicability, we divided this in 3 areas. So normally the controls are 40% managing infrastructure. We have 30% managing applications, and 30% of the other controls come from internal policies and procedures. Normally these controls can change based on the frameworks and based on the regulations that each business follows. So for example, if your company is managing using CIS controls, you're going to manage a landscape of 100, 200 controls, but if your business is managing NIST Rev5 controls, you're going to have almost 1,000 controls to manage, just by following those policies and procedures. Having this in mind, What's a consolidated view of control testing? A consolidated view of control testing integrates the results from the manual control testing. So every time you need to collect evidences from control owners, or you need to request evidences from specific line of business areas, we normally conduct a control testing where we apply if the control is effectively operating and if it's well designed or not. Nowadays, this information is not enough for us to actually trust the information that we are getting from the line of business, nor the evidence. If it's a control that sits on a cloud infrastructure, or if it's a control that depends on external information, we can automate these control ratings and rationalizations. So basically, this consolidated view allows us to see all of the controls that got tested manually, and we collected the evidence manually, but also allows us to see all of the results that we are collecting from, in this case, we have an integration with AWS, allows us to see every 24 hours if we have controls that are compliant or not compliant based on AWS policies and procedures. This also gives us an easy access of evidence gathered across control testings. Every time we want to deploy a control against a deploy or test a control against a framework, if that same control is present in a different framework, we can easily see if we already collected the evidence, if the control is compliant or not compliant with that specific framework as well. We then move to the automated compliance return of investment. So we've done some tests, and we came down to these numbers. So 20% improved customer satisfaction, 30% reduction in compliance costs, 50% improvement in efficiency, 70% in reduction in compliance errors. So compliance is not the same thing as security. But why? Let's move to dynamic risk assessments. So everyone knows how normally we conduct a risk assessment. See, in cyber is not as simple as doing an impact and likelihood assessment. In cyber, we need to look at many, many other factors. So for example, here we have an example of what is a dynamic risk assessment. It's a numerical representation, so a quantification of a risk to the asset. It's also a continuous process to evaluate or assess the risk that is associated with that specific asset. So to take this example, we've created a step-by-step process that needs to be established to conduct these automated risk assessments. So the first one is identify assets and source of risk factors. Normally, the asset identification comes from the CMDB. And now I'm going to quote Gavin from the last summit. You don't need to bring in all the assets from your CMDB. You just need to bring in your crown jewels, the ones that you really, really know that you depend on. So once you bring in those assets, you start to identify the business criticality, how critical those assets are to the business. And we need to define exactly which KRIs, key risk indicators and factors, we want to use to define the risk levels of each asset. We will then automate the capturing of these metrics. Some of them are based on threats and vulnerabilities, patch results, number of issues, so on and so forth. We will also define the algorithm framework. As you know, MetricStream has a framework that allows you to easily define what's the factors that you want to use and how you will use those factors in the risk assessment. So using this algorithm framework, you can build out any type of algorithm that you want to assess your assets. If it's a critical asset, you can follow a specific workflow. If it's a non-critical asset, you can define and follow a different path as well. And last but not least, dynamic dashboards to display all of these results real time. So as you know, if we have all of these factors that allows us to continuously receive different information automatically, why can't we get a specific number for the risk value? So in this case, we've decided to come up with an equation example. So we have here an asset called payroll database. The business criticality is high, and we have an example of the asset value. For this type of assessment, automatic risk assessment, we are looking at 4 key factors. We are going to look at the number of exploited vulnerabilities, number of open issues, patching status, and number of threats. The weightage can be anything. For this example, we are assuming that the weightage is 1 for all the factors. So imagine that the number of vulnerabilities exploited came down to a number of 10. And then the number of open issues, we made a summary, or we rounded up to a 3. 3 represents a high rating. Then we have the patching results. 2 can represent failed status, or 2 that failed. And number of threats, also from a scale from 1 to 5, we have level of threats very high. So based on these numbers that can change based on the vulnerabilities that we are getting, the threats that we identify, the latest patching results that we collected, the number, we will basically build out the equation so we can come up with an asset score. So imagine that suddenly there's no vulnerabilities. If I remove all of the vulnerabilities from this asset, my risk automatically, without me doing an assessment, my risk will drop from 20 to 10, that quick. Then I clean up my threats. The risk will come from 10 to 5. And once I get more vulnerabilities or more threats, the risk can go up based on severity or can come down based on my mitigations. This is how MetricStream is looking out to build the dynamic risk assessment. Is based on n number of factors, and this number of factors will be automatically captured within the system. The asset risk dashboard basically gives you exactly the same type of view that we get from the compliance side, but compliance is focused on controls, and here we are focused on risks. So the idea is to have a full view of a specific asset health. So understanding what's my vulnerability exposure, what's my threat severity, my asset value. The asset value can change from one day to another based on the criticality of specific lines of business as well. So we basically have a dynamically updating dashboard. Every time something happens, automatically you get the dashboard updated, reflecting all of that health around the asset. Ordered by asset risk score. So whenever you go to this dashboard, at the top you're going to have the most exposed assets, the ones that you need to focus first, the ones that requires more attention. Then you have, it allows you to prioritize all of the remediation actions. Nowadays we still have clients that they look at all the assets as equal, they just filter by criticality and they look at all the assets as same. But they end up wasting much time focusing on assets that are critical and testing controls for assets that are fully mitigated and fully in a green stage of health. And once they finish those exercises and those assessments, they end up wasting time because they have more critical assets, and that the criticality can be, instead of critical, can be high or even medium, but they have many vulnerabilities. And if these vulnerabilities are not fully mitigated, it can completely expose the asset. We will talk about now UI UX. I will leave it to Kumar.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
So now what we have seen that you have already performed your assessment. You have already initiated a number of issues, right? How do you visualize them? So with the new release, right, what we are planning, as you can see that we have significantly improved the way we are representing our reports and dashboard. And the best part is that you can personalize these dashboards and reports. If you don't want to view the data for a year, you can narrow down probably by month, by quarter. You can also change the colors that, for example, I would like to see all my issues that has rated higher critical in some color that is very much personalized for your organization. You can go back and personalize, configure those, and that will remain for you as well. You want to filter based on the number of issues that has been rated critical, and you want to filter based on your individual business unit. All these functionalities, all these capabilities we have with our new improved reports and dashboards. We'll talk about the brand new assessment experience. As you might have seen from Jose, what he has mentioned that. Now what we are also calling out the improved collaboration. We are talking about new form layout, which is continuously going to combine with the new tab functionalities that will be available with the pinned contextual info, where the left page will offer all the information and you can pin for your better experience. This will also allow This will also help you to have a complete new UX and UI interface as well. I'll probably leave for 5 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
But if you have any specific questions, please do let us know. We'll be happy to answer that as well.
We have also the roadmap if you want to cover that.
I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So as a part of the roadmap, as you can see that what we have, right? We just definitely wanted to share with you what we are planning as of our roadmap. So for now, we have expand evidence management capabilities for compliance, where we'll be definitely going to see how you can reduce the manual evidence creation and collection. We'll talk about enable cyber risk professional to continuously assess risk unique dynamic risk scores. I think Jose has already explained and demonstrated how you can dynamically perform your risk assessment. We have also talked about extending the continuous control monitoring partner network to improve the continuous control testing, where you can add your different partners to enable that. We'll also talk about provide access to real-time data via dashboard for visibility for your enterprise risk as well, right? Where you might have seen that not only you can personalize your report and dashboard, but also you can create your reports and dashboard based on the data that you would like to see and you would like to use for your reporting, managed reporting specifically.
And just to add on the continuous control monitoring, we currently have the integration with AWS that allows us to do continuous control monitoring on AWS assets. We are planning to roll out the integration with Azure and also with Google Cloud. So it gives us full visibility on the main cloud providers and allows us to continuously monitor all of these controls sitting on these cloud infrastructures.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah. In addition to the vulnerabilities, a number of vulnerabilities, is there any actionable part? How to remediate them? Who is owning the vulnerabilities?
So we have a process, a full process established that allows us to connect with the vulnerability scanner. And on top of that, once you connect to a vulnerability scanner, you can design your own rules. So let me give you an example. Imagine that you have an Oracle database sitting in your infrastructure, for example. Tenable might be your vulnerability scanner, and it identifies a specific vulnerability on this database server. What you're going to say is, this database server is critical for my business, so its criticality of the asset is high, and whenever it identifies a vulnerability, for example, a intrusion or a tentative attack, it will automatically initiate an incident that the SLA of this incident will be 1 day. And you can assign it to database owners, for example. So once the identification of the vulnerability happens, it will automatically initiate an issue. So there will be no need of human interaction to initiate that issue. So the person receives it, 1 day SLA to close it. Once you close it, it means that the next scan, there will be no vulnerability, if the vulnerability is fixed with the incident.
And who provides the remediation steps? So if the database owner doesn't know how to remediate?
Normally it comes from the vulnerability scanner. Because the exploited vulnerabilities and identified vulnerabilities are already documented, and the steps to fix those vulnerabilities are already provided. So once the Tenable identifies a vulnerability, the majority of those, I would say 95% of those, they will give you the path to fix it. Okay? Any other questions?
I have one. So
Yeah.
expand evidence for compliance. So how do you categorize what sort of compliance my product needs to be followed? Is it something I, as a user, will mention, like I need to follow this and this compliance, and then you do the assessment, or it's something MetricStream will decide and let me know? So how does it work?
So normally the plans and the requirements that you need to follow are provided by your policy standards within your company or by a regulator. They define all the requirements and the steps that you need to conduct.
Basically, if it's a list of ISO standards, or so basically I'm going to provide that, and based on that.
Yes. What we normally do is we came from a path of having no information in the system, so we would load your own requirements. We now change to have the system already loaded with the most common used frameworks. So ISO 27001, PCI, NIST, HIPAA, all of the main frameworks are already available in the application. So when you start, you're not starting from blank, you're starting from a very nice starting point. Okay? And that question takes me to the next slide, that is GRC Prime. So what's GRC Prime? GRC Prime, it's a more simplified version of Cyber GRC. So Cyber GRC Prime is for smaller teams. So normally in cyber you have cybersecurity teams that are in charge of maintaining the controls, monitoring the controls, and at the same time mitigating the vulnerabilities and managing the risk. All of these in a big company, they are completely segregated. We have cybersecurity taking care of the asset infrastructure and managing the compliance exposure, and you also have a different team managing just the risk part. Cyber Prime allows you to manage everything within the same team. So it brings IT cyber policy, it brings IT and cyber compliance, IT cyber risk, threats and vulnerability management, third-party risk, and issues and remediations. It's a smaller version of the out-of-the-box application, as we call it. Okay? It comes with 3 roles. The Cyber GRC Prime Manager, the one that can create all, view all, and full manage all the applications within Cyber Prime. It comes with the business user, the user that can only view his activities, create his own activities, and send it for the manager to approve. And also the Cyber GRC Prime Administrator that can configure the entire application suite. They can configure relationships, change risk parameters, configure new channels for communication, define new questionnaires, create surveys, so on and so forth. It's a full admin. And it also comes with pre-built content. So like I was mentioning, it comes with NIST Rev 4. We are about to release the NIST Rev 5 package. It comes with HIPAA security rules, requirements with the mapping against NIST CSF and NIST Rev 4 controls. It comes with the NIST CSF factors, requirements as well, so the functions and categories and subcategories with the mappings back to the NIST Rev 4 controls. It comes with SOC 2 requirements, so the areas of focus, with the mappings as well to the NIST Rev 4 controls, and the PCI DSS 3.2 that we are working to release version 4. We converted this into requirements with the mappings between NIST Rev 4 controls and NIST CSF requirements. We also have built-in policies and risks. So for the risk, we are using the risk library provided by the Software Engineering Institute. It's a very nice 4-level deep risk library, as you can see on the image on the right side. Allows you to have different types of risks, different types of sub-risks as well. We have pre-built-in draft policies from the SANS Institute. So if you don't have specific policies for email encryption or anything like that, there's a draft policy in there that you can change, reuse, or adapt to your reality. It also has prepackaged assessment setups. So instead of waiting for your organization to give us how you conduct assessments or how you conduct your plans, it's already preloaded and pre-configured for a turnkey kind of approach. So whenever you buy MetricStream, it's deployed, you can start automatically using it. It also comes with contextual help. So every single screen will guide you on what you can do and should do in that specific screen. So it pops up something like this, where you can click on the Guide Me, and it basically gives you a step-by-step balloon kind of approach of what you can do in the application.
Yep.
Any more questions? I think this is the last slide.
Yes.
This is the last slide. So any questions? Concerns? Suggestions? Ideas? No? Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.